Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back to the podcast, brothers. This is Rip Moore, past master of Fort Worth 148.
This is Billy Hamilton, past master of Fort Worth 148.
And this is Gabe Yagish, past master and marshal of Fort Worth 148. And we've got another minisode for y'all.
Minisode. That sounds like one of those hard seltzer names, yeah. Get your Blackberry minisode.
I love it. So we've done two previous minisodes, right? Two quick hits on MasoniCon, right? And it's coming up in August. And this minisode is not about Texas MasoniCon, but more about the Texas MasoniCon staff, right? And just, I guess we've got the three of us now. There's more people involved in the MasoniCon staff, but we're the ones that y'all hear rambling on in the podcast archives. So we thought we'd talk about where we've been Masonically. I guess, do we want to just keep this to post-pandemic? Because pre-pandemic and during pandemic doesn't make sense to talk about.
We knew what we were doing then. I was here on my front porch.
Exactly.
Worried if I was going to have enough toilet paper.
Exactly.
We were all in that same boat.
Yeah. Let's start with you. Once we all crawled out of the pandemic shutdown, what did you start getting up to?
So, I was lucky because I really wasn't that motivated to get back out. And not that I was scared, because being young, I figured if I got COVID, I could weather it, which I did. And I did weather it. But you just got used to being in your shell so much. My wife was a teacher, so she was home all the time and she was getting paid. So luckily we weren't hurting for money, where I knew a lot of people that did things like cut hair and were musicians that just they struggled. But I was grand orator at that time. So that really, it wasn't like you had an option. You know what I mean? It's like you go to Masonic events, Grandmaster says to be there, you be there, which I'm not saying it was, because once I was there, it was like riding a bike. I'd rather be nowhere else, and that was quite an experience running around the state doing that kind of stuff, speaking at all those different events, and what a privilege that was. I talked about it the few minisodes ago about where Ken, because I forget I even had that position, it doesn't even seem real, than one of those types of memories. And when I really think about it, it's why in the world did that guy choose me for that position? And man, I'm glad he did. I've got a picture of me speaking in front of the San Jacinto Monument. It's it was so surreal. Still, not, have to pinch myself a little bit that it was a real moment. But post that, shortly, I guess somewhere during that period it was wrapping up as grand orators around October. That I lost my brother to a motorcycle accident. And that really I was still trying to get out of my COVID shell and get motivated to stay doing the regular Masonic activities, aside from the stuff, like the duties I had to do as an officer. And that totally took the wind out of my sails. I was like, I'm back to the family thing, which needed to happen because there had to be a grieving period for that. That was a tough one because, losing somebody, that they're sick or something like that makes a little sense. But when it's a motorcycle accident, it's hard to make sense of all those typical things that really made it hard to get motivated to go back to Lodge. But, of course, time heals. Well, doesn't heal it, but you realize you got to move, you got to get back to doing the things you enjoy. That's what they would want you doing. And I was appointed to the education committee by Brad Billings, his year's Grand Master. And thank goodness I was. Because everywhere you look in Masonry and in society, it's trying to pull your motivation from you, And that education committee, with the leadership we have with our chairman, Cody Carcroft, he's a whip cracker, man. We make the joke he carries a hatchet because, he expects us to do what we're going to do, and he holds us accountable to that. And so our committee works well. Imagine that.
What a weird concept.
Yeah, going around and doing the OLT with these young Masons mostly. Some of them have been Masons for a while, but most of them are newer Masons, not young men, because it's all age spectrum, but they're newer Masons and they're officers working their way up, getting to sap off of their excitement about what they're going to do in their lodges. That was so healing, you know what I mean? So I felt like that was really meant for me to be there in that position, because I don't think I'd be as motivated to be doing stuff like this, the podcast, because all of that was affected by COVID, by the loss of my brother, and just falling out of rhythm and then trying to find that rhythm again. Boy, it was just like everything was going off course. But then those LTs and that committee, that seemed to really hold things together. And of course, when I show up to 148, the world's problems seem to melt away. And, we have our drama at Lodge for sure, but it's so rare that it's just such a treat to get up there. And, when I started getting back in the car with my dad and going, he started going again as well. It's just, you feel all those good tingly feelings of doing something bigger than yourself, even though, it's silly to think this podcast is, but me and Billy were talking about the other day, when we go visit lodges, we get some flack from listeners that are expecting content out of us, to where they can grow their Masonic career and journey. And I just had no idea that we were making that kind of effect. So full circle, here we are back at it, putting out content.
Yep. That's what it's about, man. Billy, how about you? What's been going on with you?
Well, so, as most of you know, I for a while I was general manager of the Grand Lodge Library Museum of Texas. I left that position when I received an offer. Unfortunately, it was one that I could not turn down. So I got back into the world of IT. I am a senior data analyst now, for a major corporation. However, Masonically, things have been booming. I've started going to Masonic Week. We've been there for 2 years in a row now with the company that my wife and I run, Mercury Crafts. We have a vendor table there. Uh, Masonic Week is a great experience. If you're a member of some of the invitational bodies, it's an amazing place to just hang out and get to meet all the people that everyone that I've met has been very friendly. So it's cool to see everyone just come together and have a good time and share education, right? Because most of those bodies are about education when it comes down to it. But we've also done some other things. Um, we went to England. Actually, I guess I should roll it back a little bit. I'm currently Worshipful Master of Texas Lodge Research, so been very heavily involved with that. That's been a great experience. I've been trying to represent Texas Lodge Research by visiting some of our, I guess, sister research lodges. Would that be the best way to say it?
Yeah. Brother research lodges.
Sister, yeah, our fellow research lodges. Maybe that's better.
Chimney, yes.
Yeah.
Fellow sounds proper.
So yeah, I have attended Oklahoma Lodge Research, Research Lodge of Colorado, and the granddaddy of them all, Quattro Coronati in London, England. That was
How about that?
Yeah, that was
Cool.
a fascinating experience. I got to hear the Prestonian lecturer for last year give his lecture before the lodge. And the interesting thing about this, I had no idea. You do not have to be a Mason to be the Prestonian lecturer for the United Grand Lodge of England.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was an eye-opening experience for me. But he's a great guy. They have dinner after Quattro Coronati at a pub across the street from UGLE, from Freemasons Hall. And so that was an interesting experience because I sat next to a brother from Hong Kong. Next to him was a brother from one of the outlying provinces, provincial Grand Lodges. And then they were on my left-hand side, and on my right-hand side were non-Masons, which is weird to see at a Masonic dinner, right?
Mm.
And so it was an interesting experience between, hey, for the non-Masons, they had lots of questions about what Masonry was about, especially with, they were there um, as guests of the Prestonian lecturer, and so they didn't really have much exposure to it. So it was interesting answering their questions. And then also talking about the differences in um, lodges and the culture and everything else with the brother um, from Hong Kong and from England and everyone else there. So that was a fantastic experience. If like Masonic Week, it's something that I feel that if you have the means and the opportunity, it's something to absolutely try and do. Yeah, but while I was there, I also did a lot of research, went into the United Grand Lodge of England archives, and I digitized, I want to say over 2 days, I digitized 2,600 pages of material.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, and that was before the release of the book that I have on Jill P. Lightfoot's material from the Grand Lodge of Texas Library Museum that they have the collection of papers there. So that was released. Geez, I don't even think it's been a month now. It's been released, and I've been very humbled by the positive um, feedback that I've received from the brethren. So that book is it's Ancient Mysteries in Modern Masonry, the collected writings of Jewel P. Lightfoot. It's all unpublished material that was in the archives, and that's available at Amazon or through the publisher Westphalia Press. That they do a lot of publishing of the House of the Temple, the staff there. They publish a lot of their material. A fantastic. They've been wonderful to work with. But I'm in the weird position now that I have this book and I'm being asked to talk about it. I in the next couple of months, I think I'm going to be at about half a dozen different lodges talking about it. And at the same time, it's like I have this wealth of material that I already have an idea for a second book on. And so I'm stuck in between. It's like I need to promote this book, and I really want to get working on this second book.
God, you make me feel lazy, Billy.
Yeah.
But that's
as somebody who's gotten a sneak preview of the second book, I'm super excited to see it in print.
Oh yeah, this is also unpublished material, so a sneak peek for everybody. But once everything dies down, I'm going to get back to it. The second book is archival material on a 36-degree system that was practiced in England from about 1872 to 1908, and it's kind of quasi-Masonic. It's not attached to anything official, but it involved, such people as Mackenzie, Kenneth Mackenzie, John Yarker, William Westcott, and so it's been a fascinating study to look through it.
That sounds super fun.
Yep, and
very interesting.
So yeah, so yeah. New job, Texas Lodge of Research, and the new book. That about sums up my last 2 years.
That's
bragger. Yeah, what have you been doing, Gabe?
I've been doing a lot. So
actually, yeah, you've been busier than all of us, like combined and twice over.
It has been a little bit of a nightmare in the best way possible. the past 2 years have been very much an exploration of how much I love masonry and how far I am willing to go for masonry. We were coming out of the pandemic, right? And I would say that I began traveling a lot, and I became a circuit lecturer for the grand chapter. And I developed a talk about John Custos and the origins of the Royal Arch degree, and how we know a lot about the origins of the Royal Arch degree from historical documents, including signed confessions from John Custos when he was captured and tortured by the Portuguese Inquisition, right? So nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, but really nobody expects the Portuguese Inquisition because they've never heard of them, right? And so I became a circuit lecturer for a grand chapter and started traveling everywhere. And then got really involved with the internet committees of the various Grand York Rite bodies. Then I became a circuit lecturer for the Grand Commander, and I developed a talk about the historical Templar rule, the monastic rules that they lived by. And at that point, I was making myself available officially for Grand Commander. It was a super fun trip, and I got to go all sorts of places. And I was also serving, and I also began serving as governor of Trinity York Rite College, which now I'm the past governor thereof, right? And it was a super blast. I made tons of friends. I helped charter a new lodge, or actually, within that space of time, I helped charter 2 new lodges, right? Ocean Lodge, which is based out of Weatherford, and Mercury Lodge, which is based out of Addison, North Dallas, right? And I got involved with, Billy did too, right? We helped charter a new council together, Robert Morris Elgin Council, which travels around the state. And so we got super, super busy. And in the middle of all of this, being, traveling around the state, letting people know that I was a candidate for grand office, that kind of thing. My wife and I had our first kid. And that was August of 2022. And wow, things have changed a lot,
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer, right? I became a dad, and it was an incredible experience. And we were, her due date was lining up adjacent to the full moon. And so we were super hoping that he would be born 1 week early, right, on the full moon, which is statistically tied to deliveries and childbirth, because then he would have been born on my birthday. And he was not. He was not. We hung around and we hung around, and he wasn't. And so they said, "Hey, you're almost ready, but not quite. You're come in on Wednesday, and let's have you do an ultrasound." That's what they told my wife. And so I said, "Okay, we'll come in on Wednesday and see if we can induce you on Saturday." And it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I can't remember rightly. I think it was a Wednesday. We go in to do the follow-up ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech said something that kind of totally blew past me. I heard it. I did not comprehend it. And she was like, "Oh yeah, looks like it's baby day today." And I said, "What?" And so, because Sarah immediately started freaking out, and she started kind of slapping my arm. I said, "What did she say?" She says, "The baby is coming today." And so what basically had happened was that at some point in time, Sarah's uterine fluid levels had dropped immensely. And to the point where it was, "Okay, no, we're sending you to the labor and delivery ER, or the labor and delivery ICU right now." Sarah didn't realize, she didn't feel bad. She didn't realize anything was wrong, right? And we would not have known that if she hadn't gotten that ultrasound that day. And so I had to text my mom. I said, "Mom, we were here for the ultrasound, but the baby is coming today. Can you grab the go bag from the car?"
I bet you love that.
And so my mom went and got it, and she brought me the changes of clothes and the blankets and the toothbrush and all this other jazz. And that's when we started living out of a hospital for a few days. My wife went into labor for 25 hours, and then we had an
God.
emergency
Poor
C-section.
Sarah.
And I got to watch the doctors cut her open and rip a baby out of her. That was crazy.
Ooh.
I watched the first one. The second one I didn't watch. I was good after that.
It was a fascinating experience. Sarah was an absolute trooper the entire time. And for the first time, I got to hold my son in my arms. And it was just an incredible experience. And life has never been the same. His name is Raphael. And we call him Rafi or Rafa for short. And he is just an absolute joy. He's also huge. He's 11 months, but he's the size of a 2-year-old. He is 93rd height percentile and like 60 something weight percentile. So he's a big old boy.
Oh, wow.
11 months, wearing all 18 to 24, and some of those are tight on him. Yeah, so
he scowls like a madman.
Yeah. So we think that by the time he's like 13 months or so, he'll probably be wearing 2T. So he's a beast of a child. And through all that, I was still on the campaign trail. So
yeah.
I started having to rebalance and restructure my entire life around being a dad, which I knew would happen, but it was interesting to see how it panned out. And I started attending Masonic events again after a hiatus of about like 2 months. I took a solid 2 months of just not going anywhere. I was working from home full time, and started going to stuff again. And it was something I noticed that was super cool was that now my relationship to other Masons was totally different because I was a dad. And it's not that people were holding back from me or anything like that. It's not that people were keeping things secret from me or anything. But I found that I now could relate to all of my fraternity brothers who are dads in a very different way. And that's another, we talk about initiations, right?
Yes.
I was initiated into fatherhood, right? And I found out, there is the, the society of fatherhood, right? And when you get initiated into that, your relationship with your brothers is different, and it's better. It's better because you can relate to them on a deeper, more meaningful level than before, right? And that was super cool. And I discovered, anytime that I traveled, I was always thinking about my kid, right?
That's the best, yeah.
I would be traveling somewhere, if I was going to Houston or going to deep South Texas or going to the Panhandle or whatever, I'd go to the hotel and I would fall asleep, kind of scrolling through photos of my son, because I would miss it, even if it was just an overnight trip, I'd still miss the heck out of him, right?
Yep.
And, long story short, we got to April. I won the election in a very tight competitive election, and I have a lot of love for the guys that also made themselves available. The two wonderful gentlemen, and they're both they've both also hit the road as well, in addition to some other guys. So they're all candidates. And it was very, very encouraging because we have a grand body that, that has this depth of field when it comes to candidates. So I'm super excited that everybody involved in that election is making themselves available for the next election. It's been great. I'm a Grand Commandery officer now. It's a weird thing to think about, and I'm just super blessed. I'm going to be teaching a school of instruction on the first weekend of August in Lubbock, Texas. I'll let everybody know, an open secret, I'm terrified. It's going to be fun. But I've never done one before. I've seen plenty, but we'll see how it goes for the first time around. And we just got done doing a statewide festival. So all the the vast majority of the Grand Chapter, Grand Council, and Grand Commandery officers were involved in this, either on the planning side or on the conferral side. We conferred all of the chapter council degrees and the commandery orders in one weekend in Waco at the Grand Lodge Memorial Building, and it was an incredible experience. We had a large number of signups, and by the end of the day, we ended up knighting, I think, 32 guys. So it was a very cool experience. And there's some talks right now, although not solidified, about doing it again next year. So it's cool to be part of this, right? Like, this is I get to play on a team that has a lot of fun and does very meaningful stuff for Masonry, and that means a lot to me. So it's just kind of cool. So I don't want to sound like I'm bragging or anything by any means, but it's been a huge blessing. And so we'll see how it goes. It's a 10-year line, so God willing, I get to serve all those years and eventually serve as Grand Commander. It's an exciting time. So
Yeah,
that's what I've been up to for the past 2 years.
You said something that caught my attention. That being a part of a team that's doing something good for Masonry. That's fun and exciting. That really is. That's just boiling down. What makes a lodge itself successful. Because if you're not having fun and if you're not doing something to make this world better, or leaving the wood pile taller, as Cody says, higher than you found it, that's what most guys are after. And if you're not doing that, there's your problem. So figure it out. Whatever your why is, just make it fun getting there and create a good team around it. Because man, that's what it's all boiled down to. Because for me, that's what saved me, is being a part of a good committee and team that was like, okay, you said you're going to do that, and it's going to get done.
Yeah, well, and that's why, that's why you're on the Committee on Education, right? That's why Billy is master of the Texas Lodge of Research, right? That's why this podcast exists, and that's why Texas MasoniCon exists, right? Because everybody here, in this conversation has a strong, undeniable drive to be part of a team that is doing something for Masonry at large, right?
Yeah.
And that's what all of this is, right? It's like, we all found our own ways to express it individually, right? I'm doing Grand Commandery stuff. Billy is serving as Master of TLR. You're on the Masonic Committee for Education and Services, right? And then, so that's our individual expressions of that drive. And then collectively, we're doing it with the podcast. We're doing it with other members of our lodge for Texas MasoniCon. This is amazing. This is why.
And it's a struggle.
It's a struggle. It's not easy.
Yeah.
but
it is once you get done with it. Yeah. That's good.
Satisfying.
For sure.
Folks, that's what we've been up to for the past 2 years. It's not often that we talk too deeply about our personal lives on the podcast, but we hope that kind of gives you some insight into behind the scenes and gives you some value. We don't talk about ourselves individually that often, but we hope this was kind of fun.
You can totally see now that I was the only one being lazy. Dave and Billy were very busy.
Yeah. Love it.
For sure. I think that's, I just was so humbled by all the listeners we have out there. I thought they might be a little interested in that anyways.
Yeah. And I have to say, actually, it's been good kind of getting back into the swing of the podcast again, because we put a pause on it for quite a while. It was pretty sporadic with it, but getting back together, I love these moments, right? Of just us chit-chatting, right? Even whether we have a guest or if it's just us, there's something great about just having a conversation with friends.
Nope, that is for sure.
And before we close out, Rit, you had a quote for our last minisode. I've got a quote for this minisode, and it's related to that drive that I talked about. And it's probably one of the most famous quotes in Masonry, and I believe we've used it on the podcast before, but it's worth repeating. What we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we have done for others and the world remains and is immortal. And that's by our illustrious brother, Albert Pike.
Man,
Yeah,
Love that one.
that's great
stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, fellas, it's been fun. This is Rick Moore signing off.
This is Billy Hamilton signing off.
And this is Gabe Yagish signing off.